Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It's the Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 episode of The Marco Jure Show. Thank you for tuning in here. Today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best of radio, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. I want to begin today's show with an article I saw earlier in the Wall Street Journal. President Trump has now declared to Iranian patriots that help is on the way. Now, folks, this reinforces all of my previous statements that we would be at war soon with Iran. I just didn't think it would be this soon, but we are clearly planting the seeds to do so. It says here, President Trump has ruled out talks with the Iranian government and is now encouraging anti-government protesters in the country to keep up their campaign. He took to Truth Social on Tuesday morning, saying, Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I can't even believe what I'm seeing right now. We went into Venezuela recently. We're talking about taking over Cuba, Mexico, Nicaragua, Colombia, Greenland even, for God's sakes. And now, of course, we're talking about going into Iran. This has been the promise, I guess you'd want to say, of the Trump administration since last June, that we would eventually go to war with Iran. And that's clearly playing out right in front of our eyes right now. Now, we're still seeing some large-scale demonstrations in Iran, despite, of course, what we're being told. Lots of these have been dwindling as the days have gone on. They're not as intense as they once were. And we need to recognize that a lot of these protests that we're seeing in the streets, they're not organic. They're not something that has been a grassroots campaign. These are paid agitators. Understand that. Just like what you see here in America. Same damn thing. And what the Western news media is doing is honing in on some of these protests, telling you that this is the way that every single Iranian thinks. And I want to remind you, this is a nation of 91 million people. 91 million people. Let's say you got 1 million people on these protests. It's still a small fraction of the overall number of people that live inside Iran. Let's keep that in mind. Now, the death toll, of course, is what we're focusing on now. And, of course, Trump said this early on. He said if they see the government killing Iranian protesters, that we would have to intervene somehow. Well, now they're saying today that the death toll in the unrest has surpassed 2,000. That's what an Iranian human rights group said last Tuesday. So, again, it's all the fuel for the fire. So now what are we going to do? We're going to come in and start bombing Iran? What about the people in the streets that are pro-Islamic Republic governments like this and support the Ayatollah? What's going to happen to those people? I said this before. I'll say it again to you. If the Iranian people want a new government, that's up to them to take their government on. That should not be the job of the United States or anyone else saying, we're going to enforce this, we're going to enforce that, because we like it. It's ridiculousness. Absolute ridiculousness. This does not have to happen this way. And again, I'll remind you, a lot of what you're seeing is not really exactly what you think you're seeing. I'll pose it to you like that. By the way, I saw on Fox Business yesterday a headline about Elon Musk playing a role in Iran as a key Iranian mission. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I mean, I'm guessing he's referring to Starlink being used, obviously, to project the internet over the country during this government shutdown of it. And again, all the online influencers, they love it. They love the protests, what they see in the streets, or what they think they see in the streets, obviously. And, there's a problem with all this, though. As I said to you before, these are paid agitators, by and large. The people that are causing this civil unrest, the fires in the streets, the firing of buildings, of cars, and what have you. businesses. They're killing police officers. They're attacking military bases. And again, many of these people have now been caught. Some 10,700 of them have been caught, actually. And I was listening to Scott Ritter speak yesterday, and again, I value his opinion greatly. And he said that there's roughly 6,000 of this 10,000, and probably even more now today, this figure now, but 6,000 of them have been in communication with the CIA and Mossad agents on the ground. Now, these assets are not directly in Iran, but they're on the borders of Iran, and of course, they're directing people what to do. And these are the people, these two groups, obviously, are CIA, and Mossad want this regime change to happen. So we have groups of Kurds, Baluches, the MEK, the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, and they had their phones seized when they've been arrested, right? So the Iranians come in, they arrest these people because of what they're doing in the streets, what's happening, and their phones are seized. So now, what did the Iranians find? It's gonna blow your mind. What they did, they figured out how to break the codes of Starlink, right? They get given to them by the Russians, who also broke these codes, right, to get in the system. And many of these people that had these cell phones with them had the exact same message on their phone from an Israeli Mossad female agent speaking in Farsi to them. Okay, and by the way, she's also cloaked in a former Shah's flag as she speaks to them. Again, to these paid rioters, of course. And what do? Well, they tell them, she's telling them what to do, where to go, what to say, if you're arrested, what to say, where are you going to go next, what are you going to do when you get there, all the information you would expect from an organization like this. So again, the CIA, like in Russia, and you're going to figure out exactly what's happening in that aspect with what the CIA was doing in Russia. Well, they just got caught now by the Iranians. They understand what's going on fully. They understand what this whole movement is all about. Iran, of course, by the way, has now said out loud that they're ready for war. They've been saying it for the past couple of days. I just saw it reiterated on Fox News. Let's also not forget, though, that they said that if attacked again, they will bomb every single refinery, every single U.S. military base in the Middle East. And do you realize that would bring down the global economy if that were to happen? If they were to take out every single oil refinery inside the Middle East, if attacked, what that would do to the world economies, it would bring it down. It would absolutely bring everything down. It would crush everything. I mean, you want to see $10 per gallon gas? Be my guest. Probably $15 per gallon gas if you're inside California. But this is not good, folks. And if we make this misstep, and it seems like we are going to be making this misstep very soon, and go ahead and do this, Republicans can wave goodbye to the midterms. That's number one. And number two, the economy, as I said to you before, our national security is going to go into free fall. It's a test, folks. It's a test. Is President Trump interested in peace, or is he interested in, I guess, doing whatever Benjamin Netanyahu wants him to do and say and go into Iran? We know that they want to go into Iran. This has always been the step of this government. Again, I can only hope that he backs off, or someone, for God's sake, somebody, advise them otherwise not to do so. But if he does this, he's going to lose all credibility with the American people. And again, rightfully so. He promised us peace, and now he's talking about going to war with Iran? Iran that has nothing to do with our national security at all? You've got to understand the bigger picture here. This is not Trump that wants to go into Iran. This is Netanyahu that wants us in Iran. They are using these protests as a false flag to get us into Iran. And if we do this, again, you can kiss the economy goodbye, folks. Everything would be in free fall at that juncture. Not a good thing at all. All right, let's move on. I've got another great article for you. So we're going to keep an eye on that. That's going to be happening very, very soon, I think. You're already going to be seeing the Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, coming out and floating the idea of meeting with Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, but he's already denounced everything. He has made up his own mind, Trump, that he's not even going to speak to the Iranians. He's just going to go and do what he is told to do. What sane person would go in and start doing this right now? I can't think of a single one, folks. This is not good. Nothing positive is going to come from this, and certainly nothing positive for the Americans is going to come from this. And I know people listening are saying, well, Gerais, isn't the Iranian government oppressive? They do illegal things to the citizens. Again, I told you before, that's up to the Iranian people. The Iranian people don't want this government. It's up to them to take it down. Shouldn't be our job to go in and do regime changes for governments. And by the way, I told you this yesterday. You've got to control the entire military, which you're not going to do inside Iran. You got to control their intelligence organizations, which you're not going to do in Iran. And you got to win over the people, too, to some extent. That's also not going to happen. Just like you're not going to win over the people inside Venezuela, or the military, or the cabinet positions, or the government. They're all on the side of Maduro in Venezuela. Now, I know, again, you've never seen the pro-Iranian groups out in the streets, but they exist. They exist, and that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing that, but they're just not simply telling you about this. All right, folks, let's go on to this next article I have for you. And again, I want to talk about the relationship between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump right now, too. Trump is just adding more fuel to the fire here. And again, it's going to come back and hurt the economy this year. This is in Russia Today. It says Trump threatens now 25% tariff against anybody doing business with Iran. So that would be Russia, that'd be China, that would have been Venezuela, right? Brazil. I mean, you could go list off all these countries, of course. Since our U.S. President Donald Trump says he's now going to impose a blanket 25% tariff on any nation that conducts any sort of business with Iran, and again, escalating his pressure campaign to isolate the Islamic Republic amid ongoing unrest. Now, the new tariff comes in after President Trump said he promised very strong options and suggested that Washington could then intervene militarily to support the Iranian people's quest for freedom. Again, who are those people? Well, yeah, some of the Iranian citizens, but it's largely these ethnic groups that live inside Iran's borders, that the CIA has ties with, that are going in and doing this. That's what you're seeing. Again, they're honing in on that. It's all obfuscation. It's all smoke and mirrors to what's actually going on there. There are legitimate protests going on about the economy. One can understand that. So now what's going to happen is we're going to what? Put a 25% tariff on Russia? On China? Really? We're going to add that onto the existing tariffs? What's that going to do to consumer prices? Nothing good, I can tell you that much. And again, where is Congress? That's my big question here. Where the hell's Congress? Where's Mike Johnson? What's he doing? A tariff is a tax. That is supposed to be brought forth. That's supposed to be signed into legislation, given to the president. Should everybody vote on it? And then the president signs it. Not the other way around, folks. Where is Congress on this? Where is the Supreme Court on this? We have separation of powers for a reason. Trump cannot just wake up one morning, or he shouldn't at least, and say, I'm going to start doing this. A new tariff on Russia. Now, if Congress gets together, they decide this is beneficial economically for the United States, that's one thing. That's one thing. But it's not the president's job to, again, just make up tariffs off the cuff. Simply not a good idea. And you're going to understand very, very soon as to why. Let me talk about Putin and Trump, though, first. I really want to get into this. And I want to bring this to everyone's attention, too, by the way. When President Trump began his second term as president, many of you, of course, were happy. I was too, by the way, because we believed he was going to be the man of peace. He just said on New Year's Eve he wants peace. He wants peace around the world. Okay, we're happy about that. We want peace. But I sadly no longer, in my good conscience, can really believe that this is true based on his actions. I'm looking at Trump's actions. I'm not looking at what he says anymore. What is he actually doing for peace? The Ukraine war is still going on, is it not? He said he was going to end that in one day. Everything happening in the Middle East, Israel can bomb Lebanon, bomb Syria, bomb Iraq, bomb Yemen, bomb everyone inside Gaza and the West Bank. They can even bomb Iran. Hey, we did that for him, didn't we? We allowed that to happen. Where is the notion of peace? And you can come in and say, well, he got those 8 different conflicts, India, Pakistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan. First of all, none of these governments have signed any sort of peace agreement, by the way. And just so we're all clear, a ceasefire is a pause in fighting. It is not an end to fighting. That's why Vladimir Putin wasn't going to play ball. He doesn't want a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. He wants a peace treaty to end this conflict, to end it. And again, you need both governments to come in and do such a thing. That hasn't happened in any of these conflicts. And by the way, many of them have also seen a resumption, of course, in the fighting that we're seeing. Not a good thing. And again, while I can applaud his efforts to do so, that's not the end result of this. That didn't happen. It just simply didn't happen. Now, we're all told, of course, this is the art of the deal. It's 5D chess, trust the plan, America first. It's a bunch of nonsense. This unnecessary tension between President Trump and President Putin has been building for almost a year now. Right? Ever since he took office, which again is going to be about a year from now. Now, upon taking office, President Trump said that he would end this war in a day. And we're coming up on the anniversary of him taking office. So it takes him 365 years to get, 365 days to get this going. It might take 365 years. Who the hell knows at this pace? You know, the Russians' war of attrition, who knows? We're a year into this now almost. And again, there's no signs of this war stopping between Russia and Ukraine. Now, on yesterday's show, I spoke with you about how I would be shocked if Iran called to make a deal with President Trump, obviously. That's what he was suggesting. And again, if anyone would even believe that he would even honor any type of negotiation from any of these countries, by the way. After President Trump betrayed the Iranians, we all know this, thinking they're going in to speak about peace, about negotiations over nuclear technology, believed that they were happening, and again, behind the scenes, he okayed Israel to go in and bomb their nuclear facility sites, Natanz, Fordow, Isfahan. And in the result of that, 78 people were killed. 320 are wounded, many of which, by the way, are civilians. Even the UN Security Council came out and said this. Now, Russia sees this taking place, and now Russia can relate, can't they? What do I mean by that? Well, it's now been demonstrated, by the way, that the 91 drones that struck the residence of President Putin's home in Novgorod were actually CIA operations led by the stellar National Security Advisor himself, Marco Rubio. Notice he's no longer in any talks and invited to Russia to speak about peace. Of course, despite being the Secretary of State, which in our terms would be like a prime minister, by the way. And of course, we see that this was carried out by Ukraine. But it's got our handprints all over it, by the way. Russia, by the way, in the news is coming out and saying, hey, this has been Ukraine. They're the ones who did it. And to an extent, they're absolutely correct about this. Ukraine did launch these drones to attack Putin's residency. Now, before you call me a propagandist, hear me out here. I always come with the facts. You know this. Yesterday, I was listening, as I said to you before earlier, Scott Ritter. By the way, he's got ties inside Russia as well. And again, he interviews Russian officials regularly. He understands the countries. He's a former UN weapons inspector. And he said on Judging Freedom yesterday that after the strikes on Novgorod, the head of the military intelligence inside Russia gave a drone guidance chip from one of these drones that struck the residence. They retrieved it out, right? They looked at it. They analyzed it. They looked at the digital footprint of this. And he ended up giving it to a U.S. defense official because some of these drones didn't blow up. So they were able to go through and understand where they came from. They understood this. So they found out the trajectory of its path, where it came from, where it was supposed to go, and again, who programmed it. And again, that would be obviously Ukraine that were the ones that were launching this. Right at the time we're supposed to be talking about peace, we're sending drones to kill President Putin. Not a chance in hell. The Russians are going to work with us now. They're not interested in peace anymore. They're interested in winning this conflict, and this war is going to be won on the battlefield. That's just the way it's going to be. No one's going to talk to Putin. Witkoff, Kushner, Trump, nobody. Certainly not Marco Rubio, by the way. Because they know what happened. They know what was going on here. They know the intentions here. Then you go look at the tariffs, of course, that were used to coerce Russia. How we were involved in blowing up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, of course. That would be under the Biden regime, of course. But they see what's going on here. They see the trend. And now this attack and attempted assassination attempt on Putin's life. We can forget about peace. So let me just tell you that much. Certainly us creating peace. I'll go one step further, though, before I end this segment. And this gets a little bit more scary. Because the New START Treaty, that's an arms control treaty that is ending in February 5th to be exact, of this year. And originally, Russia said they wanted to extend it. They wanted to extend it another year. That's now gone. Russian officials are now openly saying, by the way, you've got Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev coming out and saying now the future production of nuclear weapons will continue, meaning inside Russia. You got another top brass in the Russian government coming out boasting that they have much better intermediate range ballistic missiles than the Oreshnik, which again outperforms what we have by far. This ballistic missile can travel up to 3,400 miles, right? They got hypersonic missiles. They got a lot of stuff. They got a lot of stuff in their arsenal. And this technology blows ours right out of the water. Now, on a nuclear standpoint, we're somewhat there, but they are really crafting their technology here. So this claim that is, again, this is just the start, by the way, of a new arms race. This is what we're in. They have better technology on the way. By the way, they're saying they already have it. It's in the works right now. But Russia is no longer going to downplay their arsenal. They're simply not going to comply with another nation that just tried to kill their leader. So it's over. The arms race is now back on. It's up and running. And any trust between the two nations, U.S. and Russia, certainly U.S. and Ukraine and Russia. And then you had the idea, too, that President Trump leaving the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty back in 2019. Terrible idea, by the way. They said that Russia violated it. They never did. It sparked this entire thing. It sparked the entire arms race that we're experiencing right now. And Russia, by the way, folks, wants to survive this. They don't want to perish as a people. So they're not going to play ball with us. And again, this just spits entirely on Ronald Reagan's, obviously, determination for peace, for world peace, and of course, his legacy in and of itself. But more importantly, it puts we, the American people, in grave danger should these tensions continue to escalate. If more of these attacks on President Putin's life continue on, are we going to expect any type of retaliation here in the United States? God forbid. Now, I can't speak to that. I have no idea. But this is the danger that this puts us in right now. And when we see these clandestine acts in Iran, of course, using the CIA, Mossad, obviously propping up these protests that are causing property damage, they're killing police officers, they're attacking military bases. And then we come out and say, you know what, if you do anything to these protesters, these peaceful protesters, we're going to come in and solve the problem. Are you kidding me? We can't even solve our own peaceful protesters in the streets here in America. It's unbelievable. It really is. And then you have this attack on Putin's life. They know what's going on, folks. They're not stupid. The Iranians are not stupid. The Chinese, they're not stupid. They understand what's going on completely. And this puts diplomacy at a great risk. And when there is no diplomacy, what else can you look for besides conflict, folks? That's the big takeaway from all this. You can stack up sanctions, you can stack up tariffs on people, but when you try to kill world leaders, you're asking for more conflict. And they simply are not going to trust you. It's going to take a long, long while before you earn that trust back, if it can even come back. I don't think it can be, by the way. So expect the Ukraine war to go on. It's going to go on as long as, I guess, NATO funds it. That's what it's going to come down to. How long does the EU want to keep funding this conflict? And until then, until that position where Ukraine finally says, hey, you know what, we've had enough. This war is going to continue on. And President Trump is putting himself in a very awful position here. Who is going to be our ally after this? That's the big question. That's the big takeaway from this. Are we going to be able to work with China, Russia, and trade in any type of alliance with each other. Seems very seldom at this point. And by the way, we're also ramping up the rhetoric, as I mentioned to you yesterday. It was out of CNBC. With going to Greenland and taking it by military force. It says here that Greenland's prime minister has a blunt message for President Trump. We choose Denmark over the United States. That's a big blow to Trump, isn't it? The guise of national security for Greenland, seriously? What the hell are we going to do in Greenland? That's what I want to know. What's happening in Greenland that we need to go in there? And what is Russia and China doing in Greenland that poses any type of threat to the United States? Can anyone think of one? Of course you can, because there isn't one that exists. It's just more land dominance. It's the Wolfowitz doctrine in full effect. Take more land, take more resources, control more territory. That's all this is about. But anyways, they wanted to say here in this article that Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen said on Tuesday that the Arctic island chooses Denmark over the United States. And of course, obviously pushing back against President Trump's repeated takeover threats that he's still doing, by the way. He said, if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark. We choose NATO, the Kingdom of Denmark, and the EU. It's a pretty bold statement, of course. And what are we going to do now? They're not willingly going to come over. Denmark willingly isn't going to give up the land or simply sell the land. So what's going to happen now? Do we invade a NATO country? Do we invade Denmark's territory? Greenland, which is, again, a sovereign territory as well? Do we take it by force? What's going to happen to the 50, 60,000 people that live inside Greenland? Do we oust them? Do they become U.S. citizens? What happens here? What is the end game in all this? You know, it's one thing to say something, but if you have no idea what you're doing, and you have no strategy behind it, what purpose does it serve to us? That's the question I want to ask. There is no purpose. So what are we going to do? Oust this Nielsen guy? What's going on here? There is no good reason to go into Greenland. None whatsoever, by the way. We got bases all over Europe. We have bases all over all parts of the world, by the way. We have 750, 800 military bases all over the world. If we're worried about a threat coming from China or Iran or Russia or whatever, it doesn't matter. We have bases all over the world. We have allies all over the world. So don't buy this whole, guys, we need this for national security. Again, I haven't heard a good reason for it. Maybe there is one. I still don't believe that we need to take this land by force. Even the Danish Prime Minister himself, Frederiksen, came out and said they would work with us. You know, if we want to work inside Greenland, we could do that. If we want resources, they'll work with us. But we're taking the bully approach again. We'll come in and invade you. We'll take you over because we can. Because you're smaller than we are. I can't think of a time in history where something like this would have turned out successfully, folks. Just thought I'd bring that up to you, of course. So there is a lot of pushback from, obviously, all these nations. And it's going to continue on. So 2026 is off to a rough start, I have to say. Peace is not on the table. And I don't foresee any peace, obviously, in any of these regions, by the way. I see more turmoil. I see more chaos erupting, of course. And whoever is advising President Trump should be fired on the spot, of course. But nobody is going to stand up to him. All he has is a bunch of yes men around him. And he has people chirping in his ear. You know, we could do this, Mr. President. We could take this. They're just a bunch of, 50, 60,000 people. We could take them. We could take Venezuela. They're just 31, 32 million people. That's it. We can go in and take them. It's mostly jungle. Rough terrain. We can go in there and take Caracas. Don't worry. No one's going to stand in our way. Hey, look where we are now. Look where we are now. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, folks? Oh, by the way, the blunder inside Venezuela, which is certainly turning out to be just that. This is in the Associated Press. Says Trump inclined to keep ExxonMobil out of Venezuela after CEO expresses a response that President Trump didn't like at a White House meeting. You all heard this on yesterday's show. The CEO of ExxonMobil, Darren Woods, went out and said that essentially that it's uninvestable. It's uninvestable to obviously go in there and start doing all this. The cost itself is not lucrative to these private oil companies, and there is no benefit to them. Now, President Trump going in there thinking, hey, we're going to get this abundance of oil. It's going to be great. We'll up how much oil we produce, which again is a hell of a lot, by the way. We blow every other country out of the water in oil production, just so we're clear on this. And we'll have even more at our fingertips at a given notice. Well, obviously, that didn't work out like he planned. Again, I told you, there's lack of planning in each and every one of these strategies. And it's not benefiting us whatsoever. But President Trump said on Sunday that now he's inclined to keep ExxonMobil out of Venezuela after its top executive was skeptical about the oil investment efforts in the country after the toppling of former President Nicolas Maduro. He said, I didn't like Exxon's response. That's what he told reporters on Air Force One as he departed West Palm Beach, Florida the other day. He said they're playing too cute. Now let's stop for a minute here. They're playing too cute. Now these are oil executives. These are businessmen. These are investors. These are financiers. It's not some guy you just found off the street. So let me just put it to you that way. If they're saying that it's uninvestable, it's probably because it's uninvestable. It's not a good deal for them. And I implore everyone to go listen to yesterday's show where I broke every single step down about how this oil has to be taken out of the ground, the steps that have to be in place even before you can even ship it. It's not cost effective, folks. This is heavy, heavy crude oil. This doesn't just spurt out of the ground, okay? Like you saw back in the day, of course, when oil rigs were being put up and it would shoot up into the sky and they have to cap it and do all that. That's not what's happening here in Venezuela. This has to be actually pumped out of the ground. That's how thick it is, this heavy crude oil. And by the way, it's the heaviest crude oil in the world. But President Trump went on to say that he wants oil prices to come down, the price of oil per barrel. Well, I'm looking at the prices today. And Brent crude is roughly around $62, $63 a barrel. WTI is trading at about $58 and a couple cents per barrel. Last time I checked earlier today. Once oil gets to about $50 a barrel, folks, just so, again, we're all understanding this, you're not earning much money. You're not earning a profit. So now we're going to go into Venezuela when profits are down. And we're going to put all this investment into this region that's very underdeveloped, by the way. The infrastructure is not what it needs to be to produce the amount of oil per day that we would like. And I told you before, it's going to be a $183 billion investment over the course of roughly 15, 16 years. And then you can start even, maybe begin, if you're lucky, producing maybe 3 million barrels a day in Venezuela. Right now, their output is roughly about 750,000, maybe. On a good day, they get about 934,000 barrels I've seen at the most. But right now, they're saying 750,000 barrels on average per day are leaving Venezuela. That's nowhere near what President Trump wants done. And this whole notion that Delcy Rodriguez came in and said, we're going to sell you 30 to 50 million barrels of oil. They're on the way. I'm sorry, they're on the way. We just went in there on January 3rd. It's 10 days ago. To get numbers like that, you've got to exceed roughly 71, 72 days of drilling. How did that happen so quickly? Again, it's a bunch of nonsense. That's not happening. They're not sending us 30 million barrels off the spot. Simply not happening. And that goes to show you that we're really not in charge in Venezuela. Why would we go in there and need the approval of the now interim president, Delcy Rodriguez? So again, I think we're trying to do regime change, and it's really not working out the way we thought. We didn't save the Venezuelan people like was touted. And so all the altruism, the phony altruism, I suppose, or maybe just the hope of people online simply didn't pan out the way we thought it would. Right? You saw the people online. They're all happy. They're excited. They're seeing this AI footage of people in the streets. Obviously, some of them were not even in Venezuela. Of course, some of them were in Miami, Argentina, Brazil, other places all around the world. And they're saying, look at all the people in the street. Look how happy it is. And of course, even there, you had millions of people taking to the streets in Venezuela. As poor of a nation as it is, as oppressive as the government is, people were coming out in support of Nicolas Maduro. You didn't see that in the mainstream news, but that's what's going on. Again, just wanted to share that with you. So this is a whole big mess, folks, this whole oil extraction project that's happening right now. Now, Exxon didn't respond for a comment immediately, of course, but are we really now going to alienate U.S. oil companies from going in to Venezuela to get this oil out? And again, who's going to want to take that up? Who's going to want to lose money? That's the big question. Which company wants to go in and start losing money? Maybe Exxon will be blessed to be kept out of all this nonsense. All right, folks, let's move on. I've got to talk about the inflation that's happening in America right now. This is in the Washington Times. It says here that inflation rose 2.7% on an annual basis in the month of December, is what a report is now showing, as stabilizing prices continue. So December, not a good way to end the year, I'd suppose. But it says that consumer price index rose by 0.3% for the month of December, driven by an increase in shelter costs. That'd be housing, utility, and what have you. Mortgage rates, think of all that. And it says there the indexes for food and energy, driven by a rise in gas utility costs, also rose. What did I tell you at the end of last year? What's going to happen this winter? Heating prices, they're going to go up for your utility prices because the prices are going to go up roughly 9.2%. No one's telling you that. I'm telling you that because that's what I've been told by people that know what the hell's going on. So you can expect that if you're in, obviously, the Atlantic, Northeast of the United States, it's going to get cold and you're going to pay more for heating. Just thought I'd share that with you. So prices went down in some categories, including used cars and fuel oil. Well, isn't that nice? Used cars. That's just what you want, don't you? You want to be able to buy a used car, don't you? Right? You get a nice used car. Hey, here's a 2005 piece of garbage. Come take a look. Real cheap. Yeah, that's what's happening here. This is no good, folks. It says here this is encouraging news for the economy, is what a senior economist at the Navy Federal Credit Union said, calling it mild inflation. Mild inflation. Now, the inflation numbers, which again I told you before are up 3% from December of last year, have gone up just a little bit more. And by the way, those prices are up a lot since 2020. So we've seen roughly 25-30% overall increase in inflation over the last 5 or so years. Not good numbers, folks. Have any of you gotten, wage, benefits or, wage increases that exceed that? Anybody? To keep the same standard of living? Of course you probably haven't. Most of you probably listening haven't. That's the big problem with this. That's the huge problem with this. Your wages stagnate and the price of everything else is starting to go up, up, up. And a little bit of a downward spiral in it, barely, if any. You're told how great everything is, how everything looks good. Saying that the rate of inflation has decreased significantly since the highs during the Biden administration. Here's the problem, though. They were up 30%, roughly. In some cases, they were up, you look at gas prices, they over doubled. That's over 100% increase, folks. So where is the real progress? Where is the deflation of these prices? They're not going down. Not anything stabilized. Not that we can handle. Now, while it remains above the Federal Reserve's target of rate cut for 2%, the stable nature of prices could compel the central bank to cut interest rates again this month. I highly doubt that. Jerome Powell's also signaled that he's probably not going to do that, so don't expect that. And even if he does do that, even if we do cut interest rates a little bit, it's not going to do anything for us. What do I mean by that? Well, again, once interest rates go down, you get more cheap money into the economy. The more dollars chasing everything around, obviously prices are going to go up a little bit because you have more dollars chasing the same amount of goods, unless, of course, we start producing in this country. And the value of the dollar, when the interest rates go down, the value of that dollar is also going to go down. So you're going to lose purchasing power either way. Again, I just want to share these things with you because, they're blowing smoke in your face and telling you, it's wonderful. So now cooling inflation, of course, would help President Trump if the prices actually went down, but we're seeing consumer price indexes continue to rise. That's the big problem with all this. Yep. So there you go. There you go. So they're touting this inflation report as great for the country. Wonderful. Wonderful. Is it good for anyone listening, by the way? Do you like the prices, the way things are? Because nothing has gone down, folks. Just, again, now, inflation itself, year over year, is cool. That's good. 1 year under Biden, it went up, 9%, 10%? Ridiculous. Now we're touting, it only went up 2.7%. Okay, but the prices are already up 25, 30%. When are we going to get those prices down? Or when are wages going to match that increase, folks? That's what we need to be asking ourselves. Again, we can point to Biden all day long. President Biden did this, the Democrats did that, one disaster after another. What are we doing to bring these prices down? What are you doing to make production cheaper? What are you going to do to make manufacturing come back to the United States? President Trump's been in office for a year now, folks. Joe Biden's been gone. Whatever he's doing, he's gone. And yes, while he did cause a lot of this, no one's denying that, Donald Trump is the president now. What are we doing besides putting in a $1.5 trillion spending deal for the budget of the defense next year, right? That's what they want to do. They want to up it by roughly $600 billion. How's that going to help Americans? Where are they going to get this money from, too, by the way? Tariffs, which are, again, ripping off the American people? Why don't we get rid of the tariffs, folks? Then you'll see the inflation numbers start to drop. I think that'd be a much better thing, don't you? I think so. Oh, by the way, just wanted to bring this up with you. The House conservatives pitch framework now for a second big GOP-only bill on affordability. Now, I thought this was funny because I thought they said affordability was a Democratic myth, right? It's a hoax, right? Same thing with the Epstein files. Just doesn't exist. Well, here's what they're saying now. The Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus of conservatives in the House on Tuesday, unveiled a framework for a second reconciliation bill that can pass through Congress with only Republican support, with the aim of addressing affordability concerns. Wonderful. What are they going to do about this affordability problem we have? What are we going to do about this? Now it's talking about housing reforms aimed at boosting access to home ownership, health reforms like reforming Obamacare subsidies, which they should, by the way. They should put in safeguards for that. I mean, look at all the money that's been ripped off in Minneapolis by the Somali communities. $9 billion. When are we going to get that money back? I think that'd be a good start in the right direction. And of course, what do we have here? Slashing regulations with the aim of boosting energy production. Good, I like that. I like slashing regulations, cutting red tape when it's necessary, of course. That's always a good thing. How about dropping the tariffs, folks? Have you thought about that, Congress, since it is your job to issue tariffs? Have you thought about it? Is it creeped into your minds yet? I think that would be a good start, slashing these tariffs right now to something that we can actually afford, maybe. 25, 30%, 50% tariffs is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Who wants to pay that much more on the same good? Again, it all comes out of your pocket, just so, again, we're all clear on this. But they want to say, we believe it meets the moment, and we're ready at the table. There we go. Look at that. Finally, they're doing something, the Republicans. Now, such a measure would obviously be a follow-up to the One Big Beautiful Bill, which Republicans have rebranded as the Working Families Tax Cut, that President Trump signed into law last year on the 4th of July. Republicans now have another shot to use the special budget reconciliation process, which bypasses the 60-vote requirement in the Senate. Well, if we can get health care reform, and we can cut the spending there, if we can make sure the money's going to, obviously, the people, and of course, not just in the pockets of the insurance companies, and of course, the healthcare providers, the doctors and physicians, and what have you. If we can stop that, and stop the fraud there, which again is immense, by the way. People are ripping that off left and right. If we can get cheaper energy production, that'd be good, right? That'd be fantastic. That would be good, beneficial. And if we can figure out a way to boost housing access, well, what can they do there? They can start building more homes. They can make it more affordable by cutting red tape. Could they not? Now, you're also going to come into certain states that have certain requirements, like California. I know they make it so damn difficult to obviously even just get housing going because of the CEQA bill they have in that state that is, again, destroying the housing industry and has since 1970 when it was first signed into law under at the time, Governor Reagan. Get rid of this stuff. Get rid of it so you can build housing. Make it cheaper to build housing. Then you wouldn't have such a highly exorbitant price. And again, stop importing. How about 1 million legal immigrants in the country a year? That might be a good start, too. That might be a really good start. Stop bringing in H-1B visa holders. Give the jobs that are good paying jobs to Americans. That would be good. Don't you think so? I think so, too. Republicans need to get with it. They need to figure it out, what they can do to make America affordable again. I don't know what else to say about this. I really don't understand what's taken them so long. They've had a year to work on this. And they need to make reform, too. Things like the Affordable Care Act. They need to make housing cheaper. They need to make energy prices cheaper. How about food production? Why are we giving $20 billion to Argentina for beef, for God's sakes? Or whatever the hell we spend on the beef down there. But why are we even giving them $20 billion? Trump was on I think it was it Air Force One? Or I don't know what he was on. Oh, well, they're dying. Well, what the hell do I care about that? I mean, I don't like it, but what the hell do I care? What does it have to do with us? We're just going to give them $20 billion? Really? Why don't we invest in the United States like this? California's dying. Look at that. Look at California. What a mess that is. New York, Illinois. I mean, all these states. All these blue states. Look at Minneapolis. What a mess that is. Again, I don't know if they can use any more money. God knows they've ripped off enough of it. This is all a bunch of problems, though, folks. A larger amount of problems happening, of course. They're looking to, in this bill, about, obviously, regulation cuts to Medicaid and food assistance spending programs as well. We'll see what they come up with. Looking to, let's see here. They're looking to kneecap the Environmental Protection Agency as well, which again, cutting regulations on businesses that are existing only in the name to protect environment and human health. What are they going to do? Again, get rid of these stupid bills. Get rid of all this nonsense. Let the free market work. Get out of this where you're regulating everything. That would be the smart thing to do. So the government comes here, and we're going to give this money here. We're going to throw it over here in this cause or whatever the hell they want to do. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But by the way, they end the article by saying this. It says, the framework also proposes to refill the nation's strategic petroleum reserve that Joe Biden depleted with discounted oil from Venezuela. What did I just tell you is going to happen, though? It's going to take, 3 days to even get 30 to 50 million barrels just in the United States. So how long is that going to take? Quite a while. Just thought I'd tell you that. It's going to be a while. All right. Anyways, we'll see what the Republicans can do for us. Maybe it'll be good. Who knows? I won't hold my breath, but hopefully it'll be something beneficial for us. Oh, I do want to talk to you about, obviously, what's happening with the feds probing hundreds of millions in suspended Somali cash luggage leaving Minneapolis. Good God, I can't even believe this is happening. And this is going to blow your mind when I tell you this, too, by the way. This is really ridiculous. So as their officials said, most of the cash detected in luggage involved a small number of money couriers of Somali descent. Get this, though. Guess how much money they took. So the Transportation Security Administration flagged nearly $700 million in cash detected in passengers' luggage leaving the Minneapolis airport in the last 2 years. How the hell is this possible? How do they even have access to this much money, by the way? This massive cash exodus that, again, is being tied to Somali immigrants, so-called, and their money couriers. How is this able to happen? How are they getting this much money right on hand, by the way? I mean, you go to the ATM, you try to take out $1,000, $10,000 at the bank, you'll be arrested for structuring, folks, by the way. They'll look right at you. It's suspicious. They're going to assume you're a drug dealer or something along those lines. So how are these people able to get $700 million out of the bank like this? I mean, to get that much cash in it, it's mind-boggling to me. And when people look at this, say, well, what are you doing to get this much money? What are you doing with it? How are you getting this much money? So are they going to the bank every single day and taking out $10,000? That would be 7,000 days worth of getting $10,000. Just so we're all understanding this. How are they doing this in a matter of a year? 2 years, roughly. We look at the fraud that's happening there. $9 billion worth of fraud in these ridiculous NGOs. Of course, now defunct organizations like Feeding Our Future in Minnesota, right? One of the largest ever fraud scams during the pandemic. $250 million lost just in that one alone. How is this able to happen? And the part that I don't get too, with all this, if somebody's making, let's say they're making $1 million, right? We'll be generous. There's roughly 80,000 Somalis in Minneapolis, right? That's where Ill in the Head Omar comes from. Roughly 80,000, right? That's the number they give us, 80,000. Okay. Well, here's the kicker. They're not all going to Somali, are they? I don't think so. That's news to me if they are all just fleeing there. I don't know. But here's the thing. You look at the data. About 80%, roughly 80% of the Somali population inside Minneapolis itself is on some form of government assistance. Okay, all right, that happens sometimes, right? Okay. I'll grant that to you. If you have children, it's 90% of the families are on some form of government assistance, and you can imagine they're on more than one program, right? SNAP, Medicaid, housing vouchers, all that nonsense. But yet somehow they're bringing in this amount of cash into the family. They're ripping off the government for schemes like $250 million. How does that work? Who is not following up on this? Where is the oversight on these programs? That people can have that much money yet still apply and receive more money, more taxpayer money, in the form of welfare, in the form of government assistance, in SNAP, and housing, all this stuff. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, folks? It really makes you wonder. Now, the federal and state and law enforcement officials said that the Somali cash flows were well known in counterterrorism circles since the 2016 through 2018 timeframe, because many of the concerns, of course, was that the money might head to Al-Qaeda offshoot groups like Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram. But most of the tracking of the money ended when the money reached Dubai because of the lack of interest and curiosity during the Biden administration. Now, folks, correct me if I'm wrong. 2016 to 2018 timeframe, roughly, that was the end of Obama's tenure and the start of President Trump's. How do we not get a hold of this? How do we turn a blind eye to this? How can we not figure this out? All this money now is shooting into Somalia, getting into the hands of Al-Qaeda groups? Taxpayer dollars that, again, affects each and every one of us? Doesn't matter if it's just happening in Minneapolis or anywhere for that matter. We're all affected by this. It's just where the biggest scams are happening. And by the way, we need to look at states like California. We need to look at Oregon, Washington, Illinois, all these states, by the way, all these blue states, all these blue cities. They need to have people looking at everything that is happening there. This should not be happening. This should not be happening. And by the way, the remittances that are being sent, by the way, back to Somalia, another big thing, another big money cash transfer. It's a money laundering scheme, folks. Come on. You can't see this? Now look at the example, too, here. It says here, it's been found that at least $4.4 billion in remittances sent to Mexico have been tied to cartel money laundering through small wire transfers. There you go. They're transferring money back to the drug cartels. That's our money. I mean, this just is, the rot runs deep, folks. It just doesn't start with the Somali population, but again, what are they doing here in the United States? And why are we bringing people into the United States? If they're not conducive to American society, if they're not productive members of society, why are we bringing people in here? That's a question you also need to ask yourself. Why are they here? There's no reason for it. If it doesn't benefit the United States, why are we doing it? Well, we know it's good for Democratic voters, of course. They get more votes coming in, right? They put people on these welfare programs. They vote Democrat their whole lives. Works out well for them, doesn't it? Again, go look at your major cities. This is what happens. And by the way, the amount of foreigners in many cities now is just, in many regards, overwhelming the native-born population in many respects, too. But this is all a very big problem. I'd ask where ICE is, but we know they're not doing the job either. The mass deportations are nowhere near what they are supposed to be. In 2025, we only got about 330,000 people caught and arrested. And again, while I understand this is a difficult job and obviously a difficult task, the numbers are nowhere where they need to be, folks. Nowhere at all. And by the way, I do want to talk about what's happening in terms of Minnesota, too, as far as what happened with this woman that was shot last week. Obviously, not something that is good, of course. But this Renee Nicole Good that was killed obviously sparked the whole issue on what ICE is doing, right? What's happening. And while I only have a couple of moments remaining, I do want to play Jacob Fry's response to what's happening as far as what ICE is doing in their presence inside Minneapolis. Let's take a quick listen to that quick.
These are not normal times. And so the response that we are asking for from the judicial system and from the courts requires that we file suit at this particular moment. What we are seeing right now is not normal immigration enforcement. We are not asking ICE not to do ICE things. We are asking this federal government to stop the unconstitutional conduct that is invading our streets each and every day. You've seen the videos. At times, there are as many as 50 agents arresting one person. The scale is wildly disproportionate and has nothing to do with keeping people safe. In Minneapolis, we've done work extensively with the federal government under multiple administrations to keep people in our city safe.
Now, that's a bunch of nonsense. I want to say this to you as well. Minneapolis became a sanctuary city, folks. That means they don't cooperate with federal immigration laws. Last year, in July of 2025. And who was the mayor at the time? It was the dunce talking, Jacob Fry. So why are they not coordinating with the federal government then if they're working with them, or so he claims, to remove illegal aliens? Wouldn't that be much easier? ICE wouldn't have to go and do these types of raids if they cooperated with the federal government, wouldn't it? We've seen how in Florida, states like Oklahoma, Republican governors, of course, working with the federal government. They're working with ICE. They're working with Border Patrol. They're working with DHS. And they're making this extradition. Well, that's not the word I want to say. The expulsion, of these illegal aliens much easier. Yeah, we don't want to extradite them back in the United States, even though that's what we did with the Abrego Garcia, right? But I got this article in Slate News. It says here that illegal aliens with extensive and violent criminal histories are being arrested daily as federal authorities ramp up immigration enforcement inside Minnesota, the longtime sanctuary state. So not only you have Jacob Fry not cooperating, you also have Tim Walz at a state level not cooperating with the federal government. This adds more fuel to the fire. And they know this too, by the way. Now, according to ICE, more than 1,500 illegal aliens have been taken into custody during Operation Metro Surge. And by the way, let me read the list of these, Golden Globe winners here for you. Look at some of these people here. I'm not going to read all of them. But look at this is who the people in the streets are supporting, by the way. They're supporting, obviously, people whom they claim are immigrants who are not immigrants. They are illegal aliens. Obviously, there's a difference between the two. Let's look at Hernan Cortez Valencia out of Mexico, convicted of child sexual assault, abuse, 4 DUIs. What an Emmy Award winner he is. And again, I can't say all these names, but I'll try to say the ones that I can say. Guy Yang from Laos, convicted for rape, aggravated assault with a weapon, domestic violence by strangulation, and additional sex charges. Look at that. Ordered for deportation in 2012. Here's another one from Laos. Convicted of 2 counts of attempted rape, ordered deportations in 2009. Tao Vang. All these people from Laos, by the way. What the hell are they doing in Minnesota? Convicted of sexual assault and sodomy of a girl under 13, procuring a child for prostitution, ordered for deportation back in 2006. So what the hell is he doing here 20 years later? Another one from Laos. Convictions for rape of a 12-year-old girl. I'm sorry, just 12-year-old it says here. Kidnapping with intent to sexually assault and vehicle theft, ordered to deport back in 2004. Let's go to someone else. We got a bunch from Laos. Rape. Convictions include rape, child fondling, domestic violence, burglary, larceny. How is it that the state of Minnesota couldn't figure out who these people were and hand them over to ICE, if the state is working with them? Look at this one. Gilberto Landaverde out of El Salvador. Convicted on 3 counts of homicide, ordered to be deported in 2025. Look at this one out of Sierra Leone in Africa. Convictions of 2 homicides, multiple DUIs, larceny, and burglary, ordered to be deported in 2022. Somali. Oh, a Somali guy. What's he got going on here? Convicted of homicide. Yep, there we go. So we got just a small list of these people that are wanted for these vicious crimes. Why is the state government not coming in and working with ICE to deport these people? That's the million-dollar question. Why is this not happening? And the only thing I can come up with is because they're not. Jacob Frey has no interest at all in working with ICE. Tim Walz has no interest in working with ICE. They want these people here, folks. Now, again, the bigger problem here, of course, is that the people that suffer are the people that live in these largely minority communities, too. By the way, just so we're clear on that, it's not the affluent white communities that are dealing the brunt of this. The majority of people you see in the streets. Folks, thanks again for being here today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please share with other people. I appreciate it when you do that. Make sure you're staying prepped always. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Jury Show. Till then, be good. Stay busy. God bless.